this week, there's been a dramatic announcement at the White House that involves OpenAI, SoftBank, and Oracle kind of unveiling plans for a huge AI infrastructure project that is called Stargate. This venture aims to invest up to $500 billion over 4 years to build massive AI data centers across the US, starting with an initial $100 billion deployment. OpenAI and SoftBank say they'll each commit $19 billion as the project's lead partners. SoftBank will be handling financial responsibilities, OpenAI managing operations. This venture apparently is going to be exclusively dedicated to serving OpenAI's computing needs. So this will also have a significant impact on the company's relationship with its primary backer, Microsoft. The project's first facility is apparently under construction in Texas, where Oracle and data center developer Crusoe are building a massive complex that will require enough power to run a city the size of Boston. This facility will house 100,000 of NVIDIA's newest AI chips and represents just the beginning of Stargate's planned expansion across the country. Now, the timing and structure of this deal also have a lot of complexity to them. So OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, he'd kind of grown frustrated. There have been some leaks and rumors about stories where he was frustrated with the pace of infrastructure development through Microsoft. And he is simultaneously facing a legal feud with Elon Musk. So it seems like Stargate could serve multiple purposes for the company. They'll get some more independent computing resources, strengthen ties with the Trump administration, maybe head off some of Musk's mounting legal pressure. But there's a lot of unknowns here still. Like the 38 billion from OpenAI and SoftBank looks to have been confirmed, but the path to getting that full 500 billion seems to remain unclear. And some experts are skeptical about if they're going to be able to secure enough power and resources for facilities at this scale. And however, despite all this, if this even gets to this $500 billion level, Stargate would actually represent the largest private investment in AI infrastructure to date. And according to the information, would surpass even the inflation adjusted cost of NASA's Apollo program. So, Paul, first up, before I ask you this first question, I'm just glad we have a cool name for something in AI finally, instead of all how badly all these models are named. So,
Although I
falling for the
did hear,
marketing hype.
NVIDIA recently introduced something called Jetson Thor, and I was like, "That's great, man! Let's just like
Nice.
mash up sci-fi
Yes.
cartoons with movies." Like, I do appreciate this. Like, let's just go more sci-fi and have some fun with it. Yeah, I love the name. um,
So, what's interesting though is like, I want to get kind of just your overall thoughts on this. The Apollo mission comparison was kind of
yeah,
interesting because you actually said on episode 120, you mentioned we needed an Apollo level mission for AI literacy and upskilling. And while this is not directly related to that, this seems like one that they're attempting for infrastructure.
yeah, definitely. So, I at a high level, this is exactly what I assumed was coming, thought needed to come. I think this is just the tip of the iceberg. We'll
Mm,
get into whether or not this 500 billion is real money or not. Um, I think more is coming. I think trillions. I really do. Like in the next 4 years, think that we'll have trillions committed to infrastructure, build out of data centers, energy infrastructure. How it happens is gonna, it's up for debate and who the main players are. But this is the direction we always knew this was going. Um, it is a complex deal. So this was announced 24 hours after Trump took office. I think it was Tuesday night, right? Like I think the
yeah.
inauguration was maybe Monday night, and this was Tuesday night. He's holding what seemed like a kind of an impromptu press conference with Altman, Larry Ellison, and Masasan, who's the
Yeah.
guy from
Masayoshi son. Yeah.
yeah. Um, so it is being formed as a new company. So that came out in an AI release, and I think an information article that it was actually a new venture that OpenAI is like the operating controller of, and I think OpenAI is like 40% equity or something. It's really convoluted, like how exactly the structure is going to work and what it's set up as and where it's incorporated at, and like there's all these questions. It's very apparent OpenAI doesn't actually have this kind of money. Like
Mm,
they're going to have to raise this on their balance sheet. They don't have $19 billion sitting there that they can just fund. Um, there was a great podcast like BG2. I've mentioned this many times. Gerstner and Gurley do this incredible podcast that's more on like the financial VC side, but they have awesome guests. And they had the CEO of ARM, who's actually heavily involved in this deal. He came from NVIDIA, and they were analyzing like how could they possibly even spend this kind of money? Like even if they could get this many chips from NVIDIA, which is doubtful, they don't have the energy to run a 2.5 gigawatt data center. So like
Hmm.
nothing seems to actually add up for this. Yeah, we're going to spend 500 billion over the next year. And so Gerstner's analyst firm basically went through like they couldn't possibly even spend 100 billion this year. Like there isn't enough energy to provide, and there aren't enough chips to buy to actually spend this. And then they get into like, is this mostly going to be debt? And they're actually going to borrow most of that 500 billion, and they're going to use the data centers as collateral. Like it's really complicated. So keep that in mind. Again, headlines don't always equal reality. In this case, that is definitely the case. It is the 500 billion is not real yet. And there's all these other open questions. It does hint at the complexities of the Microsoft relationship. So the whole reason this seems to have come together is because Microsoft refused to build the data centers that Sam wanted to build this power. And so Microsoft let Sam out of their exclusive deal so he could go do a deal with Oracle
Hmm.
to bring this to life. And it was for a facility that was already being built. So like it's not even OpenAI's facility. The whole thing is really weird. And then you had Satya is at Nadella from Microsoft is at Davos last week, where there was just all kinds of insane interviews and news we'll get into over the next two episodes. But one of them, I think, was on Wednesday, so the day after this, and Sorkin says to Satya, like, "Well, what do you think about this? Is this real?" And Satya has this like total, amazing line. He's like, "All I know is I'm good for my 80 billion. Like, and I'm putting 80 billion into capex, and like I don't know how they're spending it all, but like I've got the money." And then it's funny because then this leads to this Twitter feud. So of course Elon Musk shows up and starts like questioning the validity of this deal, and so he tweets. Let's see. He said. Uh, I Okay, so I tweeted out, "It was only a matter of time till Musk showed up." "They don't actually have the money," was his tweet. To which Altman replied, "I genuinely respect your accomplishments, and I think you're the most inspiring entrepreneur of our time." A little time goes by, and then Musk replies to OpenAI's tweet again, "SoftBank has well under 10 billion secured. I have that on good authority." To which Altman replied, "Wrong, as you surely know. Want to come visit the first site already underway," which again was already underway before this deal. And so it leads to this whole thing. But then the really interesting one is Musk on January 23rd, so this is now Thursday, retweets Satya saying, I'm good for my 80 billion. So Elon says, on the other hand, Satya definitely does have the money. Satya replies with the crying emoji, laughing. And all this money is not about hyping AI, but is about building useful things for the real world. It's like, that sure seems like a shot at Sam. So
Right.
now all of a sudden, Satya is getting injected into this Elon Altman feud. The whole thing is just like weird and funny and really important. Like it's all of these things at one time, and it's really fascinating to watch. But like this was the Tuesday to Thursday news. This was like pre
Right.
DeepSeek taking over the world news. Um, but at the end of the day, I think all of that, considering all of those elements, it demonstrates how infrastructure and energy is going to drive everything in America for this coming, certainly half decade, if not more. How it plays out, who the players are, how much money actually gets spent. Do we have the energy? Where's the energy come from? Fossil fuels versus new energy. Trump was on record on like Wednesday saying he hates solar energy. It's ugly. And he obviously isn't a fan of wind. And yet Elon and Sundar, like they're huge fan. It, it is truly a soap opera. Like it's amazing to watch this all unfold.
Well, what is shocking is like, again, with the caveat, who knows what will actually come to fruition here, but it really just feels like in the last month, it's just green lights everywhere. All systems go, accelerate as fast as you want,
Yeah.
basically, or can.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit more about the Trump executive order and the
Yeah.
rescinding of the previous executive order. But as we said on the podcast many times last year and definitely last week, it is all about deregulation and acceleration of technology. Like that is fundamentally what is going to happen. how it plays out, who the winners are. Um, it was easier to predict the winners last Wednesday than it probably is today as the stock market crashes, or at least the technology stock crashes as a result of DeepSeek. But it, yeah, infrastructure and energy that we are fairly confident are going to keep being built.